You spent a lifetime earning this, 40, 50 years of work, every paycheck quietly feeding one number that is supposed to carry you through the rest of your life. And then, at the very finish line, a handful of small, invisible mistakes quietly hand thousands of those dollars right back. Not because you were careless, because nobody ever told you the rules. In this video, I'm going to show you the top Social Security mistakes that are quietly costing American retirees thousands of dollars. Mistakes baked right into a system most people were never taught how to read. A tax on your benefits that almost nobody plans for. A single mistake that can devastate a surviving spouse for the rest of her life. And the number one mistake, one irreversible decision almost everyone makes that can quietly cost a retiree six figures. And do not skip around. Every one of these 7 hide to detail you are going to want. And number 1 is the costliest of them all. So stay with me all the way to the end. 7 mistakes. Real money. The stuff the mailman never warned you about. I checked twice. Now, a serious, honest note before we go 1 inch further, because this one truly matters. This is general information, not financial, tax, or claiming advice, and your real situation depends on your earnings record, your age, your marital status, and your other income. So treat every figure here as a starting point. The rules and the dollar numbers change almost every year, so confirm everything with the Social Security Administration directly at ssa.gov or with a licensed advisor before you act on a single word of it. Here is the good news. And it is the whole reason this video exists. Every one of these 7 mistakes is fixable. But almost all of them are only fixable before you claim. Once that decision is locked in, a lot of these doors quietly close for good. That is why catching them early is worth more than any stock tip you will ever hear. Subscribe if you want the retirement America nobody on cable television explains. The rules that decide whether your check is a struggle or a cushion. 7 mistakes. Let's count them down. Number 7. Not checking your earnings record. Go back to 1935. The country is on its knees in the Great Depression. Old people are dying poor in numbers that shame the nation. And President Franklin Roosevelt signs the Social Security Act, a promise that working Americans would never again grow old with nothing. A few years later, they handed out the very first Social Security cards. And in 1940, a retired legal secretary named Ida Mae Fuller cashed the first monthly retirement check in history, $22.54. She had paid in barely $24 in taxes, and she lived to 100, collecting for decades. That is the whole machine in one woman. You pay in over a lifetime, and the system pays you back. But here is the part almost nobody thinks about. That entire promise rests on one thing, a record, a ledger of every dollar you ever earned, reported year after year by every employer you ever had. And that ledger has mistakes in it. An employer reports your wages under the wrong number, a name change after a marriage never gets matched up, a year of earnings simply goes missing. And because your benefit is calculated from your highest 35 years of earnings, every missing or wrong year can quietly drag that number down. And here is what makes this one so dangerous. It is silent. There is no letter, no alarm, no phone call. The error just sits there in the file, shrinking the check you will get for the rest of your life. And most people never look until it is years too late to easily fix. The Social Security Administration generally gives you a limited window, often cited as around 3 years to correct an earnings error, though there are exceptions, so time is genuinely against you here. Verify. Who does this hit hardest? People who changed jobs often, people who were self-employed, women who changed their name, anyone with a long and messy work history, which, honestly, is most of us. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. You create your free account at ssa.gov, you pull up your Social Security statement, and you read your earnings history line by line against your old W-2s and tax returns, looking for any year that is blank or wrong. Verify. And think about what is at stake in that quiet little ledger. A single good year of earnings dropped from your record can shave a meaningful slice off the monthly benefit the formula spits out. And that slice does not just vanish for 1 month. It repeats every single month, for as long as you live, and it can ripple into the survivor benefit your spouse inherits later. Verify. Over a 20 or 30-year retirement, an error you could have fixed in one afternoon at the kitchen table can quietly cost you far more than most people would ever guess. Verify. That is why this is number 7 and not number 47. It is the foundation every other number is built on. What it costs. A single missing year in your top 35 can permanently lower your monthly benefit, quietly, for life. How to fix it? For many retirees, simply logging into ssa.gov once a year and checking that record against their own tax records catches the error while it can still be corrected, but confirm the process and the deadlines with SSA directly. Next, the mistake that can claw back your check the moment you keep working, and almost nobody sees it coming. Number 6. Claiming early while you are still working. Roll back to the very birth of Social Security in the 1930s. The country is drowning in unemployment, and the program is designed with a quiet second purpose: to gently encourage older workers to step aside and leave their jobs for the young men who desperately needed them. So the architects built in a rule. If you took your benefit and kept right on working and earning, the system would hold some of that benefit back. That rule, the retirement earnings test, is still alive today, 80-some years later, and it ambushes people constantly. Here is the trap in plain English. You decide to claim your Social Security early, before your full retirement age, because the money is right there and why not? But you are not actually retired. You're still working, still drawing a paycheck. And the moment your earnings cross an annual limit, the Social Security Administration starts withholding part of your benefit, commonly described as $1 held back for every $2 you earn above that yearly limit. People see their check suddenly cut and think they have been robbed. Now, here is the nuance that matters, and the part that gets oversimplified online. That withheld money is generally not gone forever. The system typically recalculates and credits it back to you later, after you reach full retirement age, by raising your monthly benefit going forward. So it is less a pure penalty and more a forced delay. But for a retiree living check to check who suddenly sees a chunk of this year's income vanish, that distinction is cold comfort. They planned a budget around money the government is now holding back. Who does this hit? Anyone who claims before full retirement age and keeps working a real job. The part-time consultant, the person who claimed at 62 but kept the day job, the small business owner who never truly stopped. And here is the kicker most miss. In the year you actually reach full retirement age, the limit jumps dramatically and the rules soften. And once you are past full retirement age, the earnings test disappears entirely, and you can earn anything you want, with nothing held back. What it costs. Claiming early while earning a real income can mean a noticeable chunk of your benefit gets withheld for years, blowing up a budget you were counting on. How to fix it. For many people still working, it is worth talking to SSA or a licensed advisor about whether to simply wait to claim until they have stopped working or reached full retirement age, but confirm the current limit and the exact rule for your year at ssa.gov. Next, a tax on your benefits that almost nobody plans for, and that did not even exist for the first 50 years of the program. Number 5. Ignoring how your benefits get taxed. Here is a fact that genuinely shocks people. For the first 50 years of Social Security's existence, your benefit was completely tax-free. The government did not touch a cent of it. Then came the 1980s. The program was sliding toward a funding crisis, and a commission led by a future Federal Reserve Chairman, Alan Greenspan, was assembled to save it. Out of that came the 1983 reforms, signed by President Reagan, and for the very first time in history, a portion of Social Security benefits became taxable. A promise that had been tax-free for half a century quietly stopped being so, and it has stayed that way ever since. And here is the part that ambushes retirees today. Whether your benefit gets taxed and how much depends on something called your provisional income, roughly your other income plus half of your Social Security. Cross certain thresholds and up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can become subject to federal income tax. Not 85% taken, 85% of it exposed to tax. But to a retiree reading the letter, it lands like a gut punch all the same. Now, here's what makes this one so sneaky. Those thresholds were set decades ago and, famously, were never indexed to inflation. So every year, as benefits and incomes creep up with the cost of living, more and more ordinary middle-class retirees quietly get pulled across the line and taxed. People who were never the wealthy the rule was supposedly aimed at. You can do everything right and still get surprised by a tax bill you never saw coming. Who does this hit? Anyone with income beyond just Social Security, a pension, a part-time job, and especially big withdrawals from a traditional IRA or 401k, because those withdrawals count toward provisional income and can shove your benefit over the threshold. The cruel irony is that being responsible, saving in a retirement account your whole life, is exactly what can trigger this. And separately, a handful of states tax Social Security too, though most do not. So where you live matters. Picture it concretely. A retiree pulls a large lump sum out of a traditional account in a single year to buy a truck or cover a roof, and that one withdrawal pushes their provisional income across the line and suddenly drags a big share of their Social Security into taxable territory that same year. The exact same withdrawal, spread out across 2 or 3 years instead of 1, might have kept them comfortably under the threshold and cost them far less in tax. Same money, same retiree, but the timing alone is the difference between a quiet year and a painful tax bill. That is what makes this mistake so maddening, because it is almost entirely about when, not whether. What it costs. A poorly timed retirement account withdrawal can drag a big slice of your Social Security into taxable territory and hand you a federal tax bill you never budgeted for. How to fix it. For many retirees, this is worth a real conversation with a tax professional about the timing and order of withdrawals, but confirm the current thresholds and your own situation with the IRS, SSA, or a licensed advisor before acting. Next, the mistake married couples make without ever realizing it, built on a rule written for a world that no longer exists. Number 4. Couples who never coordinate their claims. In 1939, just 4 years after the program began, Congress amended Social Security to add something brand new: benefits for a worker's spouse and family, not just the worker himself. But look at the world it was built for. In 1939, the typical household was one man earning a wage and one wife at home. So the spousal benefit was designed around a single breadwinner and a dependent partner. That world is long gone. But the rules and the opportunities buried in them are still very much alive, and most couples walk right past them. Here is the mistake. A husband and wife each look at their own Social Security in isolation. Each claims whenever feels right, and they never once sit down and plan the timing together as a household. And in doing that, they leave real money on the table. Because for a married couple, the two checks are deeply connected, and the timing of one can permanently shape the other, especially down the road when one of them is gone. Think about what coordination actually unlocks. One spouse can claim a spousal benefit based on the other's record. A couple can deliberately have the lower earner claim earlier for some income now, while the higher earner delays, letting that bigger benefit grow as large as possible, because that larger check is the one that will protect whoever is left behind. None of that happens by accident. It only happens when two people plan as a team instead of two strangers. Who does this hit? Just about every married couple that treats Social Security as two separate decisions instead of one shared strategy. And that is most of them, because nobody hands you a manual when you turn 62. The gap between a coordinated claim and an uncoordinated one, stretched over a long joint retirement, can add up to a startling amount of money. What it costs, claiming separately and without a plan, can leave a married couple with thousands less over a lifetime, and a smaller survivor benefit later. How to fix it? For many couples, it is genuinely worth sitting down together, ideally with a licensed advisor or with SSA, and mapping out who claims when as a single household strategy. But confirm the specifics for your records before deciding. Next, the single mistake that can quietly devastate the spouse left behind, and it traces straight back to the same year. Number 3. Forgetting the survivor. That same 1939 amendment did one more profound thing. It created survivor benefits, protection for the widow and the children of a worker who died. The logic was heartbreaking and simple. In a one-earner world, when the breadwinner died, the family fell off a cliff, and the nation had just lived through a decade of watching exactly that happen. So Social Security promised it would catch the spouse left behind. Decades later, that promise is still one of the most important and most misunderstood features of the whole program. Here is the brutal arithmetic that catches so many families off guard. When one spouse dies, the household does not keep collecting both Social Security checks. It keeps only one, the larger of the two. The smaller check simply stops. So a couple living on two benefits suddenly drops to a single benefit overnight, at the exact moment grief is heaviest. And if no one ever planned for that, the survivor's income can fall off a cliff. This is where mistake number 1 and mistake number 3 secretly hold hands. Because the survivor keeps the larger check, the decision the higher earner makes about when to claim is not really about them. It is about protecting their husband or wife for the years they may spend alone. If the higher earner claims early and locks in a permanently smaller benefit, they are also locking in a permanently smaller survivor check for the one they leave behind. Who does this hit hardest? Widows. Statistically, wives often outlive their husbands, and a widow can spend many years living on whatever benefit was left to her, which is exactly why planning so the survivor keeps the biggest possible check is one of the most loving financial decisions a couple can make. Failing to plan for it has pushed countless surviving spouses into a sudden, frightening income drop they never saw coming. What it costs. When the first spouse dies, the household loses the smaller check entirely, and a poorly planned claim can leave a widow or widower with far less for the rest of their life. How to fix it? For many couples, the higher earner delaying to grow that benefit is worth serious thought, precisely because it becomes the survivor's check. But confirm how it applies to your own records with SSA or a licensed advisor. Next, billions of dollars in benefits that go completely unclaimed every year, including from an ex you divorced decades ago. Number 2. Missing spousal and divorced spouse benefits. Walk back to 1965. The spousal benefit had existed since '39, but it only protected people who stayed married. And by the 60s, America was changing fast. Divorce was rising, and millions of women who had spent decades supporting a husband's career found themselves single and, under the old rules, entitled to nothing from his record. So in 1965, Congress extended Social Security to cover divorced spouses too. It was a quiet act of fairness, and to this day, an astonishing number of the people it was written to protect have no idea it exists. Here is the opportunity people leave sitting on the table. If you're married, you may be entitled to a spousal benefit worth up to half of your husband or wife's full benefit amount, even if your own work record would give you less. And here is the one that stuns people. If you were married for at least 10 years and then divorced, you can often claim a benefit on your ex-spouse's record, up to that same kind of amount, and in many cases, it does not reduce their benefit 1 cent, and they are never even notified. Let that sink in. Someone you divorced 25 years ago, someone you may not have spoken to since, could be the key to a meaningfully larger monthly check for the rest of your life. And the law specifically protects your right to it, with conditions around the length of the marriage, your current marital status, and your age. Millions of eligible people, especially women who were homemakers or lower earners, simply never claim it because nobody ever told them it was there. And the dollars are not small. For someone whose own work record is modest, stepping up to a spousal-level benefit can mean a meaningfully larger check arriving every single month for the rest of their life, year after year. Money they were fully entitled to and simply left on the table. Who does this hit? Lower-earning spouses, homemakers who never built a big record of their own, and divorced people, especially divorced women, who assume that because the marriage ended, the door closed. It very often did not. The rules are specific, and they have real conditions, which is exactly why this one is worth checking carefully, rather than assuming. What it costs. Never claiming a spousal or divorced spouse benefit you qualify for can mean leaving a much larger monthly check uncollected for the rest of your life. How to fix it? For many people, especially divorced spouses from a marriage of 10 years or more, it is genuinely worth asking SSA directly whether you qualify, because the answer can be life-changing. But confirm the exact conditions for your situation before you count on it. And now, number 1, the single, irreversible decision that can swing a retirement by 6 figures. Quick pause. And this is the part I told you not to skip, so stay right here with me. Everything so far has cost real money. A withheld check, a surprise tax, an unclaimed benefit. Those cost hundreds, sometimes a few thousand. But these last items are a different scale entirely. And number 1 is the big one, the irreversible one. The mistake that can quietly cost a retiree 6 figures over the years they have left. So do not drift off now, because this is the decision the whole video has been building toward. Number 1. Here we go. Number 1. Claiming at the wrong age. The 6-figure mistake. To understand the biggest mistake in Social Security, you have to go back to 1983 again. That same rescue package that first taxed benefits. Facing a funding crisis, Congress did something that quietly reshaped millions of retirements. It began raising the full retirement age, the age at which you get your full, unreduced benefit, gradually from 65 up toward 67 for younger generations. But here is the human part. The earliest age you could claim stayed at 62, and 62 is the moment the checks first become available. So, for decades, 62 quietly became the default, the age millions grab their benefit simply because it is the first door that opens. And that single instinct, take it as soon as you can, is the most expensive mistake in the entire system. Here is the machinery. Claim at 62, before your full retirement age, and you lock in a permanently reduced benefit, a reduction often described as somewhere around 25 to 30%, for life, never restored. But wait past full retirement age, and the opposite happens. Your benefit grows through what are called delayed retirement credits, commonly cited as roughly 8% more for each year you wait, all the way up to age 70. Now, do the math on a long retirement, because this is where 6 figures comes from. The gap between the smallest check at 62 and the largest check at 70 can be enormous. And then you multiply that monthly gap across 20, 25, 30 years of retirement. And for many people, the difference between claiming at the wrong age and the right age adds up to well over $100,000 across a lifetime. One decision, one form, 6 figures. And remember everything we built up to here, because the higher earner's claiming age also sets the survivor's check. Claiming at the wrong age does not just shrink your retirement, it can shrink your widow's retirement too, for all the years she may spend alone. Now, to be fair and honest, 62 is genuinely the right answer for some people. Someone in poor health, someone who truly needs the income now, someone with a shorter life expectancy may be completely right to claim early, and there is no shame in it. The mistake is not claiming early. The mistake is claiming early by default, without ever running the numbers. What it costs. Claiming at the wrong age can permanently shrink your benefit and, over a long retirement, swing the total you collect by 6 figures and drag the survivor's check down with it. How to fix it. For many people in decent health, it is worth carefully weighing whether waiting toward full retirement age or 70 makes sense, ideally with SSA or a licensed advisor running your actual numbers. But confirm the exact reduction and credit figures for your birth year before you decide. Because here is the weight of it. 40 years of work. Every early morning, every double shift, every dollar you ever paid in, all of it funnels down to one irreversible decision made in a single afternoon. And that one choice can be worth a small fortune. The retirees who quietly got this right understood something the rest of the country was never taught to even ask. So there they are, 7 quiet mistakes draining real money out of American retirements. An unchecked earnings record. Claiming early while still working. Forgetting how benefits get taxed. Couples who never coordinate. Forgetting the survivor. Missing spousal and divorced spouse benefits. And the big one, claiming at the wrong age, the 6-figure mistake. Remember the thread that ran through all of it? Almost every one of these is fixable, but only if you catch it before you claim, while the doors are still open. So tell me down in the comments, which of these 7 caught you off guard? Which one had you reaching for your own statement? And here is your reason to come back. Next week, I am going to show you the Medicare mistakes that quietly drain retirees' savings, the enrollment traps and hidden penalties that can cost you for the rest of your life if you miss them by even a few weeks. You do not want to miss that one. Subscribe so it lands in your feed the moment it drops. And one last honest reminder. This is general information, not financial, tax, or claiming advice. And your situation depends on your earnings record, your age, your marital status, and your other income, and the rules and dollar figures change. So confirm everything with the Social Security Administration at ssa.gov or a licensed advisor before you act on any of it.